Hey everyone, it's the Borderline Man here. Just want to check in with an update. Things have been hectic. I've got a lot of things to do with studying and work, and not much time to vlog. But things are okay, and yeah, I just wanted to briefly mention this. Oh damn, it's cold out today. I have to start doing videos inside soon because it is getting out of hand. It's really chilly, just a bit above freezing, and wet and windy. Not my favorite type of weather to do video vlogs outside. Anyway, I wanted to address a topic I've came across a couple of times lately. It's the concept of identity. It is a bit vague, I think, and the more I read about it, the more I realize that a lot of people just assume things about it. I even saw one video of a man who did a pie chart about identity and what it consisted of. And sure, the chart he did, I mean, it could fit to many people. He had things like work and feelings, family, faith, and all kinds of things. But it's in my book, it was just a random selection of things from his background, from his culture, from his values and ideology. Nothing really universal at all. And in my book, identity, if you're going to talk about something universal in it, it must be biological. Because all other things, cultural things, social things, they are constructs. And yeah, you shouldn't use terms as things being facts and science if you don't actually mean it. It's a good spot here, not much wind. I'm going to stay here. So, yeah, in my opinion, there's probably some biological things that has to do with identity. But I think most things are social constructs. Meaning, what's important is something you adapt yourself to, depending on your life, your upbringing, your situation, and all kinds of things. For instance, work, identifying yourself with work. For me, this personally is a foreign concept. I've never really done this, even when I really work a lot with something. It's always been in the back of my mind that my life has been filled with changes. Quite often abrupt changes where things that were completely normal and relevant one day could quickly go away another day. So I've worked as a caretaker for mentally disabled, for instance. That wasn't really an identity for me. That was just a work. I couldn't identify myself with certain ideals that, if you make a cliche caretaker, I couldn't identify myself with those. Empathy and so on. They weren't simply there, not in that extent, at least. So, I think the identity of work, the professional identity maybe, is a shell. It is a artificial construct, a very obvious one. But in some cases, a lot of people, they oh, it's a car coming. Let's let it pass so you can still hear me in case the engine makes a lot of noise. No, it's okay. Well, work is really important to many people. I acknowledge that. I know that. And if you work at some place all your life, of course it's going to be a huge part of your identity. But, and of course including people who have a huge passion for work, like, you know, some teachers, doctors, and priests, and people with a, how should I put it, a calling. I'm not saying everyone has it who works within these fields. I know they don't. But there are some who do. Yeah, of course it's going to be a huge part of their identity. My ex is a teacher. I know very well that being a teacher is a huge part of her identity. Massive. Is a basis for everything else in her, basically. But for myself, being a person that has gone through many abrupt changes in life, I've also noticed that if I cling to something created externally as an identity, like work, like a hobby, like a relationship, it kind of gets really just painful when it gets ripped away, because it does get ripped away constantly. That's my life. I expect nothing else. I would just assume that I have become completely delusional the moment I think that something is everlasting. Might sound a bit cynical, might sound a bit sad, I know that. But it's just the way it is. Nothing in my life has ever been permanent. Except this simple thing, that things change. So, in my life, identity for me is something that changes. And that itself, I've tried to make that an identity, of course. I actually have. I'm the adaptive one. I'm the chameleon. I'm the ever-changing person. That has been a part of my identity, and it is. But it's, of course, quite abstract and nothing solid to hold on to, except it gives me some comfort, actually. I had a friend that lost his job, and his world shattered. He basically just fell apart from this. And it wasn't because he was worried about his future and economy and so on. That was not just it. It was also that he lost something that he really loved, a part of his identity. And for me, this was just odd. Just really, really odd how something can be that important to a person. That's something that is external, something that is obviously very fragile, something that can obviously be swept away so easily. I like to, for that very reason, with him and countless of other examples in my mind, always try to make any form of identity that I have internal, not external, because, yeah, those things are fragile. They are temporary, always. It is a simple, sad truth that very few people have a life where their identity, fixed to something external, like work, becomes permanent. You can't control every variable. You can try to, but for most people throughout history, that is not the case. Things happen. Illness happens and you can't work with a thing anymore. There's a recession making your line of business maybe not longer important. I've experienced that. I'm a copywriter, content writer, and there's not much work going on for me right now. So I'm thinking in a new direction. If my identity was a copywriter, that would hurt a lot. So I try to avoid making those identities to a large extent, at least. I can't always help, because I think, and in that case, in that thing, I give people who see their external identity as really important. I give them, they are right in the way that it is obvious that humans tend to do this, connect to the external things. But I'm just pointing out that it's not a good thing. Not if you want a solid, strong foundation. Then you have to look inwards to things that probably won't change as easily. And saying that, I'm also acknowledging the fact that, of course, those things can change as well. I'm not the same person I was several years ago. Many things have changed in my life, but not to the extent they have externally. In many ways, I'm the same guy I was when I was 25 as I am today, 25 years later. I am. There are many things that are similar. You can actually find things in me that will be similar to the teenager, the young teenager, the adolescent, the preteen version of myself. There's going to be things there that are similar to as they are today. But there's going to be very few things externally that are similar, except just random things that I have trouble finding important, like, nationality. That's an external thing that many people, especially these days, try to hook on to very much. I mean, I think a lot of political things we see today, a lot of populism and so on, is to the fact that people are trying to find identity. They're seeking identity, and they struggle with it because many other things are fragile and temporary. And then they look at things like, well, hey, at least this is solid. And when there are politicians maybe that don't think it should be solid and undermine it, perhaps, in their point of view, then they get mad and they get frustrated, and they take they take offense on this, and it becomes a very important question in their life, in their political life, and they vote. And they vote to stop this, or to reverse it to something that perhaps never even existed. Well, I'm not going to be going into any debate about this, but the point is, I can understand why it's happening. It is an obvious consequence of many people struggling with their identity everywhere, because what should we call it? The primate, the Homo sapiens, the little ape on the savannah of Africa originally, we want a tribe. We want something to feel secure about, something external, whatever it is. It is a tribe, it's work, it's a nation, it's a religion, whatever it is. We want to feel a connection to something externally that is solid and eternal and so on. And those things, well, I argue they don't exist. They are, no things are that are external are eternal. They can be more or less persistent and going on. But I mean, nationality is one of those things that I know. I have a friend who is born in another country, and she moved here, and living here, she struggled with her identity. Is she Swedish? Is she Bulgarian, as she was born? She can't really feel connected to any of those things, and it left her in a void. And I get that. I get that. That's why I advocate strongly for seeking identity in eternal things. Now, what are those eternal things, you might ask? Well, that's a difficult question. I don't even really know. Because being borderline, I struggle with identity a lot. But that doesn't mean I'm inept at analyzing it. I don't think so. I think I'm way better than most people at it, because most people don't see this psychological connection to identity and nationality and work and religion and so on. They just go about their life and get mad when things change. So, yeah. Look for things that are eternal. It's a strong word to use, but at least permanent as far as you can see. Look for those things, make them a part of your identity, and you will actually have quite a solid ground to stand on. Even if those things are maybe not very dramatic, not very emotional, not very anything, I think they are quite solid to hang on to. And those should be the foundation for your identity, not any strange pie chart with external things. I think that is a bad start to creating an identity that makes you happy. Well, creating an identity, even I'm revealing myself. Most people don't create an identity. They just conform to what happens in their life and just becomes whatever they are. Well, I try to create an identity constantly because I struggle with the feeling of having a clear, strong, solid one. So I often try to analyze these things, perhaps overanalyze them. But it also gives me perspectives that I don't think some people have on these things. They have a simple, and I envy them, that they can be very, feeling very secure in their identity, and so on. But I also know that it is a fake security, because everything can change. Well, is there point to me rambling about this? Not really, maybe. Just reflections I had on the topic and so on. And yeah, I'm freezing here. Despite being Viking, I don't have much of those genes in me today. That identity, that Viking identity, talk about a constructed one. Talk about something that doesn't really exist, more than an imaginary fairy tale from the past. I mean, we don't even really, if I studied history and archaeology, so I know very well about the history of my land and the history of the Vikings. I also know that if I were to meet a Viking, I would struggle a lot in finding common ground with values and things, because it is a very different culture to the one we have today. There's no real connection to talk about. Small things, symbolic things here and there, but no. So there's nothing really solid about any form of identity, really. Solidity comes from perhaps being a bit blind to reality, and being very creative and I don't know, having a good imagination. Let's put it that way. I think those people who either are completely blind or are completely in control of their worldview, they become quite solid and strong in their identity, probably. And maybe, in the end, that is what matters. So, some ramblings from the Borderline Man, and have a good one. I'm signing off.